My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Trying to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek, or in this case, the month's events in Geek, for Friday night, May 27th, 2022. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody is having an awesome day or night whenever you're listening to this. And joining me for my end-of-the-month Rumble is my usual panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow content creators, fellow awesome guys in general. And let's go ahead and introduce them. We have Brinton Volley joining us. Brinton, how are you, my friend?
Doing pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. I survived May, the month where it's just like week after week after week, and then you finally hit Memorial Day, and you're like, praise the Lord.
Dude, I'm actually really excited for Memorial Day weekend, and the only reason being is that I don't have to worry about doing theory training modules on trucks right now. I mean, I still got to get them done, but I'm taking a 3-day weekend. I am fried.
Yep. Take it, enjoy it, just love it.
Yes, exactly. And then we are also being joined by Alex the Shadow Blazer, who joins us from Parts Unknown. Alex, how is The Undertaker doing?
Doing all right, all things considered. So.
See, I love that Brinton got it, but Alex didn't, because you're both from Parts Unknown. So you're neighbors at that point. Oh. Awesome. And then he comes over, can I borrow some milk, and gives you a Tombstone pile driver.
Well, unfortunately for Alex, I don't drink milk, so.
Actually, what's funny is like, have you seen an interview with The Undertaker ever since he retired? He's actually a pretty silly guy. He's actually a pretty silly dude. I like him. He's a cool interview.
I mean, you gotta remember that a lot of those wrestlers are playing a role. So when they're in that role for so long, you never really get to know who they truly are as a person.
And Undertaker especially, because he literally stayed out of the spotlight to not hurt the character. So, like, he would not do interviews. He would not be seen. He had a nice big mansion out in Texas that he could just sit in. And like, people locally knew him, but he made sure that the WWE universe never knew him until he officially retired. And then, yeah. And what's funny is like, a lot of people didn't know that he's a bit of a redhead, because he always had the jet black hair. What's funny is like, I'm sorry, Alex, we're going off on a tangent, but I have to mention this because that guy, like, if you ever consider the damage that hair dye does to people, that guy shoved jet black, the toughest hair dye, into his hair numerous times throughout the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And he is the only one of the Attitude Era that still has a head of hair. I'm not kidding. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, they all are either balding or straight up bald. And he's the one that shoved the poisonous chemical into his hair. So he should be the one that's bald.
That's crazy.
So,
honestly, just on a final note on that, I'm pretty sure that with all the money that he made, that he had the right people making sure that his hair was being protected.
Oh, dude, I wish I could get it, and if I ever do, I would send you a copy of the Undertaker documentary, The Last Ride, to show you exactly like how much went into taking care of the Undertaker, because like he had numerous injuries throughout his wrestling career, and he had to do like everything under the sun to keep himself in working order so that he could do that one WrestleMania match a year. So yeah, he did a lot of the experimental therapies before they were mainstream. So anyway, so let's this isn't a wrestling podcast. This isn't Running the Ropes, but we will go ahead and get into the events of May. And I have no problem saying this. May was a touch more crazy than April, primarily because of bleed over from April. But we're not talking about those stories just yet, guys, because they're still ongoing. So instead, we're going to talk about some of the weirder things that happened this month, starting with, and I can't even believe that this is happening. So Marvel licenses Stan Lee's likeness. New deal opens door for CGI appearances of the legendary creator in Disney theme parks and future MCU projects. So basically what this deal entails, Brenton and Alex, is that even though Stan Lee is long dead, rest in peace, Stan, his likeness may now be brought in via the same way that they have done, if you remember Rogue One, how they brought in Tarkin and how they brought in a younger Leia. So at that point, that's how we're going to see Stan Lee cameos from here on in the MCU. And also, Disney owns the rights to Stan Lee's likeness, which means he can say whatever they want him to say.
Okay.
Now, what's funny about this story, because Brinton, you're brand spanking new to this, but I think we've brought you up to speed on this story. A similar thing happened a few years ago, where a film company, I can't remember which one, wanted to secure the rights to the likeness of long since dead actor James Dean, and were going to put him in a current movie. To which Hollywood was outraged by this, saying that Hollywood producers were basically taking a huge loogie on James Dean's grave and on his family for trying to secure his likeness this way, and saying that this is a dangerous practice because who's to say that Disney wouldn't acquire the rights to the likeness of Robert Downey Jr. and continue having him be Iron Man, kind of thing. And this was a dangerous thing that Hollywood actors and actresses all thought was a very slippery slope to go down. So do you want to know what I find funny about this story, Brenton?
Please tell me.
None of them came out when Disney acquired the rights to Stan Lee's likeness. Some of which actually met the man. One of the bigger people in that argument was Chris Evans, aka Captain America. And he has been the flag waver for how Hollywood should not be doing this to James Dean's legacy. You'll find it amazingly interesting how silent he's been on this. The silence is damning. So you're okay with an actor, or you're not okay with an actor's likeness being brought back from the dead, but a comic book creator, that's okay? Give me your thoughts on that, Brinson.
Evidently at a loss for words. With this extra information that you're giving me, I find the juxtaposition here odd, where there are people advocating not to have this happen for one actor, and then when it comes to Stan Lee, just complete and total silence. So
Yep.
The first thing that comes to my head, or what that communicates to me, is that, it communicates two different things for me. It communicates that there is respect for James Dean and no respect for Stan Lee, or vice versa entirely. So the one question that I do have, though, because incorporating Stan Lee's cameos back into the MCU, like my body would probably just be super used to that, and seeing that in a Marvel movie again,
Yeah.
I very much would probably just react to it as, oh, okay, like whatever, like I expect that to happen.
And to be honest, I don't know if Stan himself wouldn't have agreed to this. Like I've actually kind of gone through it in my head, like what I know about Stan Lee, and part of me kind of thinks like, if he could do it, why not? But the only thing that makes me feel squicky about it is the people that signed this agreement are supposedly the same people that he took to court for elderly abuse, because they literally wanted to, and I quote, suck out his blood and put it into a pen for him to sign comic books with. So, so like these are the same people that signed this likeness deal. So, I mean, maybe he wouldn't be okay with them getting the money, but I don't know if he would have fought this. He
I mean,
probably
I
just
know
would
that
have secured his own. He would probably would have just made sure he got the money.
the only question that I have is that you said his likeness would be used in Disney parks. Like, what you like? Explain that a little more in detail. That
So
didn't like really make sense to me.
an example that is being made, I can't remember if it's being I can't remember if they're rebooting Space Mountain or if this is going to be a whole new thing, but they are going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. And so one of the cameos that they talked about, specifically in the articles that I've seen, have been I can't remember which movie it was, but like the Stanley and the astronaut outfit where the Watcher is there and he's telling stories to him. So like that, or maybe bringing back his Thor Ragnarok cameo where he's the guy that cut all of Thor's hair, kind of thing. Stuff like that. For the rides, like any Marvel oriented ride, they would try and find a way to bring in Stanley's likeness for it. But I think primarily a lot of this is just built towards the MCU.
Okay, I feel like it would be better built towards the MCU and
Yeah.
less the Disney part. It just
Yeah,
seems
it's
like,
just Disney, so they want to be able to use it everywhere.
well, yeah, and I mean that's fair. I just feel like it's out of place, especially for people who who don't know Stanley or don't know the MCU in the capacity that we do. So for them, it'd just be like, who's this old man?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we're talking about kids this generation who aren't being taken to Comic Cons to see him, I think you're exactly going to have that problem. Like, who is this random old man that keeps showing up? I think that they've got an easy way to explain it, but I think a lot of kids are not gonna process that and put it into long-term memory, if that makes sense.
No, no, not at all.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, kids these days who are engaged with Marvel superheroes at this point aren't even getting the same superheroes that we got. Now
Nope.
um like they don't have the Iron
Now
Man, they don't have the Captain
now we have
America.
female Cyclops and black female Gambit and overweight male Marvel Girl. So, yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen the new Doctor Strange movie yet or not, but now we have like crazy Mad Doctor. So
Well, he existed in the comics. The evil Doctor Strange, he existed. And on top of that, also, I love the fact that everybody's like, "Holy crap, Drac! You got what you wanted. Tom Cruise is Iron Man." I saw the cameo, and I think that's fine, because in some multiple universes, not everybody looks the same. That's how long DC and Marvel's multiverse have existed. They've been able to explain
mhm.
stuff like that. So
Ultimately, like I don't think I have any more thoughts on
yeah,
this, honestly. Like if they want to use his likeness to reignite cameos in the movie again, by like all means, that's
yep,
great. I like it's gonna feel like any other Marvel movie to me. And in fact, some of the more recent ones that I've seen over the course of the last 2 years, um, like it's just occurring to me right now that Stan Lee didn't have a cameo simply because he's not alive.
Yep, because they
And
were
so
negotiating this.
exactly. So as I think about it now, in hindsight, after seeing like a good portion of the Phase 4 films, I'm starting to realize, like, yeah, that doesn't feel right. Like there's definitely something missing.
Yeah.
So like that 1 second is literally like something that everybody looks forward to on top of what the actual film is going to be about.
Yeah. Alex, where are you at with this?
Okay, well, first I want to clear up just a couple things. The new Guardians of the Galaxy ride, it's at Epcot, and it replaced the Energy Pavilion, Universe of Energy
Okay. All right.
Pavilion.
I was not.
So,
I knew that there was a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. I just didn't know what it was replacing.
I'm
okay.
happy about that because I love Space Mountain, and they've already changed one ride in Anaheim to Guardians of the Galaxy. So for them to do it a second time just didn't settle well with me. But I forgot
Yeah,
to mention that. But
Yeah.
go ahead, Alex. I apologize.
that's okay. So, regards to Stan Lee, uh, yeah, it's a really questionable thing, especially because I already did sue this company way back when. He also co-founded it. How about that? So,
Mhm.
um, so I don't know really how to feel about it. I guess if you could, my guess is why maybe there isn't a little bit more outrage. I mean, there's still think pieces and editorials denouncing it, but why it's maybe not getting as much of a fuss from actors right now is because this is only a guess. I don't know. Maybe just because they're small cameo bits, it's like, oh yeah, you'll shove them into the background somewhere versus like reviving an actor to possibly star in a movie without said actor, right?
Sure.
But that's another can of worms. That's the problem, and that is kind of the can of worms of this too. That's why it's a really
But if
difficult
you think about it,
situation.
like they don't have to treat Stan like he's 90 if he's
Hmm.
CG, right? So they can
Right?
put him in more. Like his cameo can be longer than a minute at that point.
Yeah, and
And that's
that's
where I think
certainly
they'd be crossing the line.
yeah, that's where you start getting into much more gray area,
Very
more like
squicky
it.
territory.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's one thing that Disney's really going to have to think long and hard about, and certainly I think a lot of people in the entertainment industry are thinking about this now
Yeah.
because the technology just keeps getting there, where AIs and digital recreations of people can bring you back from the dead. So it, I wouldn't be surprised going forward, more and more not just actors, I think everybody in the entertainment industry is going to start putting the kind of stipulations in their contracts or on their deathbeds and their wills, whatever, that you cannot use my likeness for, I don't know, it could be X amount of years, like
Yeah.
Robin Williams has done. Robin Williams, like, said, you can't use anything like me for so many years. And it's like an obscene amount of years. So,
Yeah, and primarily because, like some people have seen with the James Dean situation, is that we're not talking about a person here, so it's not like you have to pay a salary to it. So at that point, like the people who authorize this, the James Dean family, they don't get like a full on salary. They get royalties from however well that movie does, and from there on it, like depending on how long that contract goes, which I don't remember off the top of my head how long it is, but they can basically be exploited and have have James Dean exploited for that many years and not really have to pay any lucrative amount to be able to secure that. It's the same thing that I've heard of like other older actors that have been debating stuff like this of like for example Ian McKellen has been approached on it on whether or not like he would authorize Marvel to allow for his likeness of Magneto to continue on, and seeing it like he doesn't know if he likes that idea,
mhm.
because it basically blocks the door for allowing for anybody else. So like if it's just Ian McKellen Magneto, right? Then you don't really have to hire crap, what's his name from First Class. You don't have to bring him in because you can
J-
all
James McAvoy, I believe.
James, not James McAvoy. The other one. He was he's in Covenant, Alien Covenant.
Michael Fassbender.
Fassbender. You don't have to bring in Fassbender. You can just make a supposedly younger Ian McKellen to be able to do all the Magneto roles, and there you go. There's one role that nobody can ever audition for. And I think that's like his primary concern about that is like actors should be able to audition for stuff if the role is open. And so
you make a strong point there. I think it takes away from the possibility of even hidden talent in our country being able to get a shot to make it to the big screen. At the end of the day, the acting profession is simply that. It's a profession, it's a job, it's something that somebody gets paid to do. And there are people out there who want to do that for a living, to pay their bills, put food on the table. So
especially if they feel like they're good enough at it. I mean, the issue also is like the Hollywood system is experiencing a lot of internal flux right now, because they're starting to realize that some of the policies that they've had over the many decades haven't really worked out for them, and things have become so overinflated. It's very difficult to be able to do things like film movies anymore. So at that point, it's allowed for indie films to kind of step in and be a viable other means for people to be able to do that. And so at that point, the only thing I could see happen is indie films get to bring in the darlings and get them the fame there, and Hollywood just kind of slowly fades away because they all they do is constantly rely on dead talent to be able to do their movies. And look, I love a lot of that old talent. I've seen a lot of those old movies, but I grow up in an era where I have current actors to be able to go watch, and then I have legacy actors to go watch, so I don't get tired of them. And that wasn't the case back then. So that's kind of the deal. But it's definitely something to consider, and I don't think anybody in Hollywood is having that thought. And it's gonna blow.
Not in the slightest.
I'm just waiting for James Rolfe to go off and do a bunch of horror movies and become like the next Steven Spielberg, because it's probably gonna happen. Well, probably not the next Steven Spielberg. Whatever he's gonna be, James Rolfe. That's what he's gonna be. But
yeah,
it's a slippery slope. And again, I know a few people are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but I'm literally looking at this from Stan's perspective. I don't know if he would have said no to that. I think he actually might have liked it, as long as, I don't know, he got to voice it, kind of thing. Now they'll just hire a Stanley impersonator to do it, and that's fine, because there's lots of them. But I think that would be the only caveat that he would have, and that'd be fine. Like, nobody would have any issues with that. It's just, I find it a little bit a little bit of hypocrisy here that people are, and granted, Alex is right, there is a difference in how much he might actually end up in the film, but one person being resurrected is a slippery slope, because then they can do it to everybody. And there's also another big thing that's another big discussion that's going around that they're also very vehemently against, which is being able to change ads in movies, so that at that point you can constantly be able to get ad sales out of streaming services without having actual commercials. So like, you could change a Pepsi or a Coke logo mid-movie, and the debate is whether or not that's actually changing the legitimate film. So, I mean, they've already got lots to look into for this. So I think we've hit the nail on the head for this one. So let's get into the next one, which is going to be a little bit more fun, because Electronic Arts. How many people on this panel love Electronic Arts? Cricket, cricket, cricket. It's almost like nobody likes the people that got the Golden Poop Award for 3 years running. So,
well, I just find it funny that you asked, because I'm staring at my Origin account on my desktop only because I like playing The Sims and nothing else.
There you go. So Electronic Arts is reportedly seeking a sale or a merger and has had talks with Apple, Amazon, NBC Universal, which is apparently for the second time. We'll get to that in a minute, and Disney. So, let's cover this really quick. Did you know that NBC Universal actually tried to acquire Electronic Arts? I believe it was in the 90s.
I had no earthly idea.
I didn't
know
either.
that.
I didn't either. So this was around the time that EA was doing okay, but they weren't like as colossal as they are now. But NBC Universal did offer them quite a hefty sum to be able to purchase Electronic Arts, and Electronic Arts actually turned it down, saying that they would prefer to have their autonomy. And now they're begging for somebody to buy them. Almost like they can see the writing on the wall. Their games have not been doing well and have not been hitting the numbers that either partners have wanted or shareholders have wanted. And this has been going on since, I want to say, Anthem, where it really took a strong dive. So, and granted, people are going to bring up, well, Apex Legends. Okay, but Apex Legends, the way I understand it, had an expectation that was not met. But it had an expectation to shareholders that it didn't meet. So at that point, Apex Legends is successful for them, but it hasn't brought in the money that Andrew Wilson promised them. So at that point, go ahead.
That is like, oh, I was gonna say that's so crazy to me, just because I felt like it really was doing so well.
Well, a lot of it, the way I understand it, and I might be wrong about this because I have not been in the hero shooter scene for a while, but once Overwatch kind of took that dip, everything else kind of did too. Even Team Fortress 2 had not a financial dip, but like a lot of people kind of stopped playing them. Now
that's too bad.
Now Apex has seen a lot more back than Overwatch has, especially since Overwatch 2 has not been properly delivering when it comes to reception. So Apex is in a good spot, but it's probably one of the few that actually is. So, and actually what's funny is you brought up the other one that's probably the most successful, which is The Sims. The Sims continues to be successful for EA. So at that point, they continue to make money off of it, plus their sports franchises, because those will always bring in money, right?
And it's funny that like we both have brought up The Sims, because the Sims community is so unbearably toxic with how bitchy all of their content like all of the Sim YouTubers are about how much they hate The Sims 4. And it's like they're all like, Sims 3 was actually the better Sims. And I say here,
or the other fans.
The Simmers, that's what they call themselves, the YouTube Sim people who do like the Sims content on YouTube. Essentially,
I don't know
like,
this because the only person that I ever knew that played The Sims was oh crap, her name escapes me right now, but she runs the 12 Days of Anime. Crap, Alex would know
Baby?
her. What was that?
You mean BB's World?
BB's World, yeah. She's the only one I've ever known that plays The Sims. So
I used to watch a YouTube channel called The English Simmer, and I follow her on Twitter. And so because of that, it automatically just like gives me access to all of that community's tweets, because they retweet and like, and all that stuff gets added to my feed. And within the last 2 years, all of a sudden there was like this what's the word I want to use here? Like, everybody just started freaking out, and they were like, we actually like The Sims 3 better. Let's remaster The Sims 3. And I'm sitting over here and I'm like, actually, I really like The Sims 4 better. Like, way better than The Sims 3. And this is something that you bring up a lot, Alex, about woke culture. And I get
Alex
why.
brings up or me? I think I'm the one
What?
that talks a lot about
I
woke.
think Adam brings it up more than I
Yeah.
do.
Woke
No,
culture
that's what I
bugs me.
said. Did I say Alex? I meant you, Adam.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, like they've like I understand why they've made it to where you can give pronouns to your Sims, make it easier for your Sims to be transgender and all that.
I'm
I
not
get it.
surprised.
It's because well, I mean, you're simulating life, and that actually occurs in life. However, there are some people, some like EA creators who work side by side with the folks, like with the developers who make the Sims, that have made it a little too woke. And it's like, I can't play The Sims 4 unless I can be a tentacle daddy clad in leather with XYZ pronouns and blah, 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 blah.
I can't play The Sims unless I'm actually an Apache helicopter.
Just like, and I'm just like, the reason why people play video games is to escape reality. And I get that The Sims puts you into a sense of reality. But at the same time, I want to be able to
it's a fantastical reality. I mean,
well, yeah, I want to be able to get into The Sims and work out for like 5 hours and be jacked as the hell.
yeah,
Like, that's
not
what I
only that,
enjoy.
but I've literally like I remember when it was a big craze, and maybe it still is amongst the YouTube Sims players. But I remember like people were actually contending with one another about how quickly they could kill their sim by locking them in the bathroom and not making the toilet accessible.
Oh, those
So,
are fun challenges to watch.
yes, and so at that point, it's just like, oh yes, because that's real life. Because we all want to shut ourselves in the bathroom and make sure we can't pee.
Hey, have you ever seen a Hunger Games challenge in The Sims?
No.
Now that's really entertaining to watch.
But I
However,
will tell you, that sounds like I need like a bottle of Prozac to just go, ah.
no, but really, like it's a fantasy game, and so I get it. I have appreciated that I can create these like stories that I can play out where it's like, oh yeah, like my Sims had this little boy, and as he grew up, he realized that like John, isn't really John, he's Samantha, and I can make that happen, and it's easy to make it happen. However, when it starts getting into these like super ridiculously complicated requests that are not based in reality,
Or the
I'm just
engine
like,
can't
no.
handle.
Exactly. I just sit there and I'm like, no, I don't want to be a leather-clad octopus man. Like that doesn't make sense. That's not like that's like no. Like no.
I see Alex invading The Sims just so he can be a shadow demon and actually come out from the shadows. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna make a household now that is just me, you, and Alex, and
The GNRO household.
yes,
All right.
we're gonna I'm gonna be the crazy dog person who just adopts all the stray dogs, and it will be vice versa for Alex with all the cats, and then you'll probably just like die of anger or something because of our
Probably.
shenanigans.
My head will explode at some point or another. Now, I should point out that, despite the fact that EA is falling on hard times, there are some successful products that have worked out well for them. For example, you've mentioned The Sims. That is technically under their purview. Apex Legends has kind of worked out. And in fact, and aside from the sports franchises, they do have 2 highly anticipated titles that are on their way, but will not make it until at least next year. Because we just barely heard about Jedi Survivor, which is going to be the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. But they also have the Dead Space remake that is happening. And so at that point, I think a lot of this is just to buy themselves time so that they can then get these games out there and be able to profit off of them. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Because I know that a couple of companies have offered it. And right now, the primary reason it looks like EA's doing this is because they've seen the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition and think, oh yeah, we can totally do this too. But right now, from what I can tell, the only one that is interested in purchasing Electronic Arts might be Apple. Apple.
Okay.
And at that point, I've heard that if they get it, they're gonna gut the company, kind of thing, and they'll they'll try and grab whatever properties they can out of it and see if they can make them Apple only products, kind of thing. But I kind of doubt that that's going to happen. And I don't see Apple buying them, but then again, I also don't see like companies like Amazon or Disney buying them either, because at that point, like EA is just kind of falling apart, and everybody can kind of see it. Oh, I forgot. Dragon Age, the new Dragon Age is also in development, so they want to buy time for that, and the new Mass Effect. So like, given the companies that are involved here, I don't even know if Sony would buy them, honestly. Alex, can you think of any, like, are any of these companies going to be interested in Electronic Arts?
Disney seems kind of likely just because of the partnership with Star Wars, and it might be a way for Disney to just kind of consolidate their Star Wars gaming properties
Well,
into something more
that
simple.
partnership fell apart, but I get what you're saying, where
Yeah,
they're basically like, they can just take control of it.
yeah. I don't see Apple particularly. I mean, Apple just hasn't really been making a lot of moves. I guess I feel like they'd do something different though if they were if Apple really wanted to get its foot more into the gaming industry. But beyond that, I don't see Apple. Amazon
No.
maybe, but I still think Disney or Sony would be the more likely contenders.
Well,
Uh,
and Sony's not even
Sony,
making an offer.
right? I mean, even then, Sony seems like the least likely because it might have to go up against antitrust concerns. But Disney, I'd see Disney more than anyone else possibly
See,
looking to acquire EA.
if it was going to be a big 3 console maker doing it, I see Microsoft, but at that point, that would be antitrust. Like, because at that point, they would own the companies that make Call of Duty and Battlefield. So at that point, like, you have so many properties at that point at your disposal, Microsoft. Yeah, we're not going to approve this one, kind of thing. Because like, a lot of the crowd that would buy the current EA games are Microsoft fans, so that would
Mhm.
probably benefit them. I just don't see Sony doing it either, because they're looking at their core audience and saying, what we've got is working. So at that point, like,
Yeah.
we can bring Bungie in here and they can make something new for us.
I
But
mean, maybe alternatively, if EA decides to like split itself among a few different, like split its various branches and
ultimately, I
divisions
kind of think that's
into a
what would
smaller
happen.
companies,
I
and then everybody kind of picks up a little piece of that.
Well, actually, what I kind of see is like a lot of those teams just kind of go independent at that point. Like, BioWare could probably survive on their own for a little while and maybe get acquired by somebody. Like, okay, if Sony was going to acquire anything out of uh EA, it probably would be BioWare, just because of all the RPGs that they would then have at their disposal.
And I would appreciate that, like, wholeheartedly. I would love to see, like, Sony would take care of BioWare very well.
Yes. Well, yes and no. The one thing that I would see that would kind of bug them would be Tor. I don't know if they would want to keep the servers up and running. I mean, granted, it has a solid audience, but I don't know if that audience is going to be enough. Sony has a bunch of other MMOs that they're looking into. I don't think they want to add another one into the mix.
hmm
I don't think Amazon's going to do it, because Amazon's already trying to build their own gaming division. So at that point, they're not looking to bring in a bunch of people who know how to make games this way when they're trying to teach their gaming division how to do it. I agree with Alex. I think Disney is the more likely of them, and they basically buy it just for the game rights. And then at that point, they can license out people to be able to make those games, kind of thing. Because like, that's what they're doing right now. Is they took, aside from Star Wars, they've taken some of the other Lucasfilm properties like Monkey Island and leased them out to Ron Gilbert to go and make a game, kind of thing. They haven't really invested on having a gaming division of their own, and I don't see them changing that. So they could do that. Apple being the most likely, that's not a good call, in my opinion. I don't think EA would benefit from that. And NBC Universal, you can't afford it. as far as I'm concerned, because I've already heard that with NBC Universal, Peacock is not working out as well as they were hoping, and a lot of the shows that they have been pitching since then have not been working out. So I don't think they have the money to be able to do it. But I do agree with Alex. I think the best way to be able to do it, separate it. And take the companies that are going to be successful. And I mean, perfect example. If you got rid of the fucking sports games, which you could sell for a fucking mint, because I guarantee you companies like Take-Two would take them, then you probably just you'd secure yourself into all of this, but you wouldn't have the sports games anymore. I don't know. It's a rough deal. So your overall prediction, Alex, is it's probably better to split apart, or it's better for Sony to acquire you.
Well, I think that I wouldn't call that my prediction. I think that'd be the best option for them to go. My
Yeah.
prediction is still Disney will buy it outright, and then gut the company, and dissolve other aspects that they deem irrelevant or redundant. So
Yeah.
my bet is still on Disney if anybody buys EA.
Okay. I agree with you. I think it would be better to break up the company. But if it goes to Disney, it could easily go that way. Brinton, what would you like to see have happen with EA?
I'm going to agree with the both of you. I think at this point, gutting the company or having it be broken up in the way that Alex has described would be a really good turning point for EA. Like, nobody's been impressed with them over the course of the last decade. I think one of the biggest things that, like, completely turned me off was when they decided to call loot boxes surprise mechanics.
Yeah,
Like
blew
that,
me.
I think that was the point at which the tumbling they were already making down that hill went faster. So,
well, it's been a number of things. I mean, Command and Conquer blew up in their face. Mass Effect Andromeda blew up in their face. Dragon Age Inquisition, to an extent, blew up in their face. Apex Legends, to an extent, blew up in their face. They've had a lot of problems, and the biggest explosion was Anthem, because of the huge blunder that was. And people wondered why
I
they didn't play
remember.
it.
I mean, my ex-husband had apologized to me after we finished Andromeda. He was just like, "This is not a Mass Effect game. Like, I am sorry you had to sit through that." And then we played Anthem together, and I don't even think we lasted 24 hours.
My entire guild went to Anthem for a week and then came back. Or went to their other respective games. So I mean that's how well that went. I love the fact that a lot of the comparisons were that it took all of the worst aspects of Destiny and put them into Anthem, and that makes sense. But the other thing that I think would be the most beneficial from this is BioWare in particular was harmed by this the most. Corporate oversight. Corporate oversight killed Andromeda, as far as I'm concerned. It killed Inquisition. It killed the Mass Effect trilogy, as far as I'm concerned. And corporate oversight would be the greatest thing, the greatest hump to get off of BioWare's back. And then at that point, you could probably, even though the founders aren't there anymore, you could probably find your place in the world. If it came down to it, but they would probably be the most to benefit from it because of all of the corporate oversight just leaning over their shoulders and saying, "No, you can't do that. No, you can't show her butt. No, you can't show his dick. You can't do anything like that." It's ridiculous how much EA destroys their own properties. So there you go. That's pretty much the rough of it. I would love to be able to see in the chat, guys, if you have any other speculations on who ultimately loses out, and who you think will buy EA. But let's go ahead and get into the next big story here, which we hinted at last episode. So Netflix has not been having a good 2 months. To sum it up for people, it turns out they might have fudged their numbers just a little bit when it came to their subscribers back in the day. And now they're facing investigations from the SEC on that. They also have seen a huge stock plummet because not only are they losing a lot of their premier, a lot of the premier shows that they had access to, and they're losing them because everybody else is building their own streaming services, and they're not bringing in an ample amount of content to be able to sub it out. They've also fired a bunch of companies that were making products that, I'm going to be honest, I don't think were going to bring them a whole lot of money. And so they decided to get rid of those, both live action projects and animation projects. I do know that the bigger series that they already had existing are also looking to be up on the chopping block. But Brinton, you actually watch Stranger Things, so you'd be able to tell me if that's accurate or not. I don't know. So you have not only that, but they were already losing money because subscribers were leaving in droves to go to the other streaming services. So at that point, Netflix is getting a little bit drastic, and they're trying to think of whatever way can save them. So these are obviously things that they have considered to do, and I'm just going to bring them up, even though they've been kind of debunked and it's been proven that they probably won't work. But first thing that they have considered to do, put ads on their movies and their series. What do you both what do you think would happen if they actually did produce a tier in their membership that required ads to be played?
People, I think
they're gonna lose way more people. Like what? I mean, I don't pay for Netflix. It's my boyfriend who does. However, he pays a lot for Netflix. It's like almost $20 a month.
Yeah.
And so, what is the Netflix premiere going to be?
I pine for the old days of yore where we paid $7 a month for membership for Netflix streaming only.
Oh yeah, I remember paying under $10 a month. Like, I can't even begin. Like, if we're almost paying $20 a month, like currently as it is, and they want to add ads, and then they want to add another tier that doesn't have ads. Well, can you imagine how expensive that is?
No, I absolutely can, because now, granted, you're at the $20 a month tier, you probably would be saved. But then what they would do is they would add in like a $9.99 tier that has ads, and thinking that that's going to save them, and I don't think so. Alex, what about you? You've been interrupted a couple of times, but
yeah, it's a terrible idea. It really is.
It really kind of is. I mean, from a financial perspective, I'm gonna be honest here, it's not. And the main reason I'm gonna say it's not is because all of the other streaming platforms are considering this, and it frankly is worthwhile, because a lot of streaming audiences have basically said, yeah, we can deal with like a commercial or two and we're fine with it. In particular, I think the one that's gotten the model probably the best is Hulu, where they basically either let you just have regular ads the way that they are, or they actually even have like a bonus thing where if you watch this really big ad, we will cut out ads for like 3/4 of the movie that you're watching, kind of thing. I like the fact that you at least give people a choice, because at that point you can put on like a big old half-hour commercial, go take a crap, go make a sandwich, and then be ready for your movie, kind of thing. So I think that that's going to work, but Netflix has always been the service that didn't have ads. So at that point, if they actually did it, I wonder, even though it wouldn't be a huge hypocrisy, if it would be treated that way.
Well, it's not just Netflix. There are other streaming services that don't do ads. Mm-hmm. The biggest proponent to not having ads is paying a monthly subscription to watch programming on your service. I'm not gonna I'm not the one who's paying the $20 a month. However, I can only imagine that my boyfriend's not going to want to pay $20 a month to have ads on our Stranger Things binge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
If we
he's
wanted
going to
to pay
want to
for
try and look
commercials, we
for
could all go back to cable TV, really.
yeah. No, Alex is
Like
right.
I don't even like ads on my YouTube.
I mean, like, ultimately, and even, and this is the sad reality, I didn't even know this until a couple of months ago when my brother brought it up to me, but, like, cable companies have also figured out how to not be completely bought out by streaming services. They basically what they do is, they know that you use their internet and they just throttle you after a certain amount, whether it be CenturyLink or Comcast, because they know that you're going to go through it with your streaming. So they basically made it so that, oh, well, you still need to have that. So you can't get rid of Comcast completely. But then you look at this, and I could already see, like, your boyfriend going, do I really need this? Do I really need this? Do I need access to all this exclusive content? And actually, like, looking to cut the bill wherever he could.
Because ultimately, like, at the end of the day, when I think about what streaming services do we use the most, and like the content that we really, really, really like to watch the most, it's going to come from Hulu.
Yeah.
It's going to come from Paramount. I pay for Apple TV Plus, and that's just because of the plan that I've purchased through my iPhone.
Yep.
Because the plan that I purchase monthly allows me to have unlimited music with Apple Music. I have 50 gigabytes of cloud storage. I have access to the Apple Arcade, and then they have Apple TV thrown in there because why not? And it's like, okay, there's a lot of great programs on Apple TV, and I enjoy them quite a bit. In fact, my boyfriend's over in the other room watching an Apple TV Plus show, and I'm happy that he is. Like, it makes me happy that he's enjoying that.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Brinson, but, like, I don't know about you. This year, I've actually tightened the belt when it comes to streaming services. Like, there was a point where we actually did have, like, 5 active at any given moment, and I've actually just kind of cut that down because I just looked at the ones that weren't being used, and I just said, we shouldn't be paying for this because all of them are expanding in price, and in a lot of cases, some of them have made some controversial decisions that maybe I don't want to support. I mean, the best example has been HBO Max. Like, the only reason I kept it was because, Andrea was watching other films, and occasionally I could get like if I had a real DC craze, I could fill that out. But it was like $15-20 a month, and there would be these long stints where it's not being watched, kind of thing.
Yeah, HBO Max is pretty pricey. However, my boyfriend and I don't pay for it. we just piggyback off of somebody else's login.
which is what a lot of people do, and you know what? Now I'm kind of understanding why they do it.
I mean, it's so true, and Adam, I completely agree with you. In the last year alone, just between my $20,000 divorce and being the only member of my family that lives in Utah now, I definitely have taken a look at a lot of the media and content that I consume, and having to make those choices of, do I really consume this, or do I just have it here because?
And in a lot of those cases, I just kind of look at it from this perspective. Like, we've cut down to having, I think, 2 active streaming services at a time. And at that point,
great.
It's just like, okay, so one of them is Disney Plus. We can't get rid of that because kids will forever want it.
Exactly.
So at that point, and thankfully we also kind of get Hulu through that bundle. So at that point, like, we technically have 3, but one we don't pay for because it's all in Disney Plus.
Right.
And so at that point, the way I look at it is, okay, now we can have HBO Max until we finish the series or movie that we're looking to watch. And then we can open up, we cancel that, and we can open up Paramount Plus and go watch the movie that they have that we haven't watched yet, kind of thing. And that's how I intend to do it from here on in.
Yeah.
That's just me. But I'll tell you right here and now, Netflix is not doing a whole lot of things to motivate me to come back. I mean, I might come back and finish Castlevania, but and maybe when Devil May Cry comes out, that's fine. But a lot of the stuff that they've announced, I've just not been all that keen on. I mean, I really wasn't keen with Cuties existing, and then on top of that, I just barely found out they actually did another series, which involved a lot of, and I quote, prepubescent nudity. And I wasn't happy that they did that either. So
That's uncomfortable.
yeah, it was. I didn't even know that existed, and I'm like, wow, kind of glad I'm not paying for that right now. And at that point, I also think that that's a way to be able to send a message to Netflix and say, don't pay for this crap. We don't want it. So I don't know. I just don't think that adding ads to it is gonna fix the problem overall. But then again, the next idea is, well, the next two ideas are also kind of out there. So before we get to Alex's opinion here, I'm gonna give Alex the first opinion on this one. Streaming live events, basically creating Netflix TV.
God, do we really need reality TV to come to streaming?
No, what that would be is streaming sports events and stuff like that, like YouTube TV does.
I mean, that's one thing, but this is opening the door for crappy reality.
Yes, it is. Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you. It totally is.
That's why people got rid of cable.
Yeah, reality TV killed cable. I'm thoroughly convinced it did. I mean, there were a couple of good reality shows, but they were so few and far between.
Yeah, I think the best one that I loved was Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah.
I know you both know I'm kidding. However, I have to
feel
say
like
it
the telltale indicator just came up, and Drac lost major respect for Britain.
Drac was not impressed.
Drac will remember that.
and then me on the other side of the screen. Damn it.
Damn it. Yes, exactly. Because that's how that always goes. But continue on, Alex. Sorry.
No, I have nothing further. I think, yeah, just make some changes and realize that your numbers are going to be finite. It's kind of another problem with tech, with the whole tech industry in general, is they always expect infinite growth, but you're never going to have infinite growth. There's only so many people on the planet.
At some point. But the best part that I want to bring up to Alex in particular is, because this is exactly the reason why this is the right decision. They wouldn't really focus on sporting events. They would focus on political events.
So they become
I would pretty
much
from Netflix at that point.
Because I already can tell you they'd be focusing on things that I don't care about. And frankly, I don't want Netflix so I can watch the State of the Union. I have YouTube for that. So, Brinton, your thoughts on live events, live sporting, live politics?
No, just no. No,
absolutely not. That's not even a sell for me, because I haven't even watched live TV since I got married. So like that doesn't buy me into it. I wasn't big on sporting events, and the esports that I watch, I can watch on my own schedule, so it doesn't really even matter. But now I get to bring this one up. They've also considered the concept of becoming a Twitch-like platform where game streaming can also be done.
You could get in the esports market, I guess.
No, that's not what they're talking about. They want to become like Twitch. Current Twitch. Not the Twitch that launched esports, Alex. Current Twitch.
Well, current Twitch is big. There's crap on current Twitch, but there's
like basically allowing for Minecraft streams, hot tub streams, everything under the sun.
I don't think a big company would do hot tub streams. Well, maybe they would, because
Twitch does.
Well, Twitch. The difference is Twitch is a self-creating. I mean, it's a user content creating platform, right?
Yes, and
you
upload a big company, basically subsidiary of Amazon. Just saying.
Yes, but the point is, it's site where you create the content yourself. I'm talking about like Netflix, the company itself, as a content producer. Unless they go the route of like anybody can upload to Netflix servers, which I doubt they would
which
do.
is what they're talking about.
I don't think so. I really doubt it. I think
I think that's a horrible idea.
I think they
Let's
would
just say
become
in theory, like if they did it, it would never work.
It wouldn't, but yeah, they would never become. But I just never would see Netflix doing that.
Absolutely,
I would not. I would not see them becoming like another YouTube, another video hosting platform. That is.
No.
I would see them maybe trying to produce their own streams, like they go sign up, like what we've seen with when Twitch and YouTube were trying to bat heads about who could get the biggest streamer. They'll go sign the streamer here to maybe exclusively make for their platform, but I don't see them becoming like a user integrated platform where anybody can upload content.
I don't think I don't think they have the infrastructure to do it. B, I don't think that they have the people to be able to do it, because they would have to do a massive hire to be able to do it, and I just don't know. I don't think they got the money to be able to do that. And C, they don't even. I don't even think they have the legal department to be able to consider that, because of the potential content that actually could come up on that. But I love the fact that they are making the same claim, because I don't know if you guys have seen Mama Susan say this, but she has made it known numerous times that her ideal vision for YouTube is being Netflix. So I find it funny that the ideal vision of Netflix is to become Twitch or YouTube. We just all want to be like each other. That just shows me there's no vision.
They should just combine into one big mega conglomerate at this point now. With that revelation.
What you're saying is they should become the actual Megalomart from Rocco's Modern Life?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
All right.
That's 100% what I'm saying.
So, final thoughts on this one, Brenton. Good idea, bad idea to become the next Twitch?
It sounds weird.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds weird. It wouldn't work.
What's funny is like they say that, oh yeah, Twitch is where it's at. Okay, that's fine. Like I get it. Streamers like Ninja exist, and I get where they are worthwhile, but you do realize that like if Twitch had anything to say about it, they would get rid of people like Ninja in a heartbeat. Just because if they so happen to mention or advertise something that is not PC or that is not user friendly, they would go out of their way to be able to get rid of them. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dr. Disrespect, but I don't know the details of that lawsuit, but I know he got screwed. So at that point, yeah, I don't think Netflix could even possibly do any of these, and frankly, all of these ideas are horrible. What they should do, in my opinion, is maybe start again from the ground up and actually work on worthwhile productions that people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's really difficult to mention this now, but a company should focus on, instead of whatever activism, whatever message that they want out there, they should focus on making money. That silence is the brains exploding for both Brenton and Alex.
Well,
because it was such out of the box thinking.
I mean, I think that Netflix should also stop like greenlighting like 20 projects in a year and then canceling 19 of the 20.
Yeah, I think they got way over ambitious.
I will forever and if I die and you two are still alive, I will make sure, and you will have to work this out with Jason. Make sure that on my tombstone it says, "I'm still pissed off they canceled the OA." I will take that to the grave. Like, I am so mad they canceled it. It was so good.
What is
such
OA?
a good show?
Just curious.
It's It only ran for 2 seasons and it was supposed to go for 5, just like Stranger Things. And the premise is a woman who went a woman who is blind who went missing, reappears one day and she has her vision back.
Huh. Okay.
That's the premise.
All right. That's intriguing.
Amazing show. And I still recommend it to people, but I let them know that they're going to be very angry once they get through season 1 and season 2 with the knowledge that there will be no more content.
Well, here's a clarification that I think would be right up your alley, Brenton.
Okay.
Would you rather have seen the money that went to projects like, say, Cuties going to the OA?
100%.
So at that point, maybe instead of taking on 20 projects, instead take on 5 and work to make them the most possible flawless gem they can be, and then put them out.
Yes. I think that would be phenomenal.
See, gaming industry, it can be done. Sorry, I'm just proving a point. But yeah, no, that's exactly what should happen.
The biggest thing that I've been saying for years is that we're the people who choose to buy this content. Yeah. And I have come to a point in my 31 years where I do not want to buy something simply because it has a brand attached to it. I want to see quality. I want to see polish. I want to see people who took their time to put it together.
Yeah.
Not because and it's the same thing with the games. There's a plethora of.
Why do you want to see that? Maybe because you have a shelf behind you that is full of that, and you don't understand why you can't expand on that?
Well, let's going back to freaking EA here for a second. I paid for Anthem. That was a dud. I paid for this. I paid for that. Dud, dud, dud. Or just the sheer simple fact of, we released this super buggy game that needed another year of development, but we're going to release it anyway. And then in a year,
needed 2.
Or, enter X number of. Yeah, enter X number of years here. And I realize I'm starting to digress. The core point I'm trying to make is that I'm not purchasing things just because, it's a Nintendo game. Okay, that's great. But Nintendo has had some pretty bad games too.
Yeah. Look, I'm a Nintendo fan. I don't buy Pokemon. Why don't I buy Pokemon? Andrea's going to buy Pokemon. And she's the bigger fan. So at that point, she'll bring me in to Pokemon. And then at that point, I'll probably get my own game. But I mean, you giggle, Alex, but I've literally done that. I've made you guys the litmus, because if you're not satisfied, there's no way I'm gonna be. So at that point, I just kind of stick to the franchises that I buy that only I am interested in, like Metroid or Zelda. I know that I'm going to be walking into something amazing there. But when they announce something new, well, it has to do a lot to get me going. So at that point, I'm probably not putting down the pre-order, is what I'm saying. And that definitely has to be considered when it comes to films and TV shows that are being put on Netflix. I mean, the perfect example that I have, I haven't seen Stranger Things. I haven't seen a lot of the stuff that has been provided. I've seen Castlevania. And here's the thing. Alex, you can speak to this. I criticized the fuck out of Adi Shankar and Power Slash Rangers. I did not have confidence walking in that he could do the job, and he fucking did the job.
Yeah.
For season 2. Season 3 is a whole other mess, and I'll figure out season 4, and then I'll answer that. But here's the perfect example. Netflix just barely acquired Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai was a successful YouTube exclusive series that, if you guys do not know what it is, it's basically a continuation of the Karate Kid movies, but years later. So they're all adults at this point. So
Yeah.
Netflix acquired it because of the success that YouTube had seen with it, and they decided not to renew it because their TV division is failing. So at that point, Netflix said, okay, we'll let you guys do it. And they did a season 4, and they knocked it out of the park. And even Netflix has admitted that this was a great idea for us to purchase them. And for every one of Cobra Kai, you have 10 other projects that you don't even... There was literally going to be an animated project called Anti-Racist Baby. Like, does that title say anything to you that makes you want to watch it?
I mean, I would watch a trailer. Ultimately, I don't think I would really watch it, though.
Personally,
like, that just sounds weird.
I think Trey Parker and Matt Stone ought to sue them because it's basically a PC Babies ripoff. So at that, but then you had that, and then you also had a series being made by Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, who has never done animation, who has never done directing, who has never done production, who has never done any of that stuff. What is she known for? Marrying into royalty. And then calling said royalty racist. That's what she's known for. That's why you hired her.
She is formerly an actress, to be fair.
Yeah, but I don't think she's got that much of a resume, does she?
Let me see.
I think it was like modeling more than acting.
Let's see. Getting...
Okay.
I'm just curious. I was...
Resume and acting. Is a resume and acting a resume and production?
Small guest roles on TV shows: Century City, The War at Home, CSI New York. Kind of looks like that, mostly just small roles.
Yeah. So at that point, is that a degree in production? Is that knowledge in directing? I'm gonna guarantee you no. Because what you basically described is she came in, did her stuff. It was probably like an hour, maybe 2 at the tops, and then they kicked her out because they didn't want to pay her any more than that. So at that given point, why would you give... I can't remember what the budget was, but it was like 5-6 figures. Why would you give that to somebody that has no experience in how to make an animated series, how to make a series in general? And Netflix did that because it was Meghan Markle. Why not? And by the way, I have some swampland in Florida I'd like to sell you. That's my main issue with this, is like, stop frivolously spending your money, put it where it matters, and then make that product, knock it out of the park. And that's how you bring people in. So that being said, yeah, final thoughts on this one, Alex, Brinton, and then we'll move on to other things.
I don't have anything left to say.
I think it's safe to say that, granted, it's not going to happen in like the next 5 to 10 years, but we're probably seeing the end of Netflix right here. We're probably seeing like Netflix making enough bad decisions that they may not be able to recover. And I know that some people are going to get irritated that I didn't mention the layoffs, because the irony of that is that some of the 150 people that have been laid off so far were the same people that walked out and protested Dave Chappelle. So at that point, I mean, I do find the irony in that, but 150 employees ain't going to solve the problem. They needed to lay off a bunch more. And they need to get back basically to skeleton crew and start figuring this shit out. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the next story tonight. And this is one of those times where I kind of wish Romney was here a little bit, because then like him and me would be both heads exploding at this. But if people remember, Hideo Kojima released a game a couple of years ago called Death Stranding, where you are basically a UPS guy in a post-apocalyptic world. And I'm not going to say it wasn't successful, because financially it did well. The numbers were there, and Sony acknowledged that he had some interesting ideas going into it, enough so that Kojima made a director's cut for it that went to PS5. and that did fairly well too. But we were all pretty much convinced it was going to be a one-shot. It wasn't going to be a regular franchise that Kojima wanted to work on. He was basically getting a bunch of crap out of his system, is the way that we kind of looked at it. I don't know if Brinton, if you've played Death Stranding or not, but like that's
I started, but I never finished it.
You know what's really weird? I would recommend you finish it. Just
because... I do plan on actually playing it. I bought the director's cut
because I actually ended up I didn't know if I was gonna like it, and I actually ended up liking it. And now it's such a staple in my house that if I ever get rid of it, my kids will literally murder me because they love the gameplay.
I mean, for what little I did play, I really, really enjoyed it. So I would very much like to finish that game.
Yeah, it's fun. But like I said, one time, and that was it. Well, apparently, Norman Reedus, who plays Sam Porter Bridges in it, might have just screwed the pooch, because he was in an interview with, I can't remember which internet publication it was. Leo Edit. In this interview, Reedus was asked about his upcoming projects, and he said this. They've got a book. They've got the final season of The Walking Dead Origins, and another Death Stranding project. His literal words were, "We just started the second one." And that he's been doing work on it.
Do you feel that the game warranted a continuation?
Nope.
Huh.
Nope. It wraps itself up fairly nicely. And what made this worse is that after this flub happened, Hideo Kojima came out of the woodwork. He doesn't really do this that often, but he does have a Twitter account.
I imagine him like coming out of the shadows in the same way Alex does.
Yeah, yes. I like that idea too. But let me put it this way. He put up this tweet. I need to do it this way. There we go. He put up this tweet. "Go to your private room, my friend."
Oh my gosh.
Which is a subtle way of basically confirming this game is happening. I also especially love that he had the bat with the barbed wire. I don't know why he did, because that would be like a Walking Dead reference, but he did. And he's also showing off a bunch of pictures, because they've apparently become really good friends since doing Death Stranding. So
that's great.
Yeah. So Death Stranding 2 might be happening. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to get my butt into gear and actually finish that game so you and I can chat more about it.
Well, now I also kind of want Alex to know, because at this point, I actually, with some of the decisions that were made in this game, kind of want to know what Alex thinks about it. I'm not going to lie. And it makes me kind of sad, because like Alex, myself, and Romney were making our way through the Hideo Kojima games. And we had just barely gotten done with Metal Gear 2. And we were actually prepping up to do streams of the next game that Kojima did after that, which was Snatcher. Which is basically like where Metal Gear is kind of a revolutionary thing, but it took from a lot of war films. Snatcher is, I don't want to call it a ripoff of Blade Runner, but it has a lot of homages to Blade Runner. Because I don't think he like plagiarized Blade Runner. I think he kept it separate enough and made it Kojima enough that it isn't a ripoff. But he does actually make nods to Blade Runner in it. So, I don't know. But now Death Stranding is a thing. And it's going to be a franchise that he wants to work on.
Well, that like I haven't finished the game, so I don't like.
See,
I like it. Like I said, it kind of lights the fire under my booty, so I can kind of like gain my own perspective on whether or not it needs a continuation or if there is more story to tell.
I'll tell you right here now, this makes me want to. So I have the director's cut as well, and me and Andrea have been teasing that like we would play it at some point, like when we have some free time. And now I kind of just want to stream it just to see the differences and see if maybe the director's cut hints better at a Death Stranding 2. But I don't know because I don't know what got added in Death Stranding director's cut. But Alex, your thoughts on a Death Stranding 2 might be happening.
I have never played the original, so I don't really have any strong opinions.
I think we need to fix this, Alex. I kind of think we do. I kind of think we need, but granted, I also want to get your opinion on all of the other Kojima games too. Because I mean, like we were set up for Snatcher, and then we were going to do the Solid games, and just showcase this because Hideo Kojima, as you've probably noticed, just like I don't know if your ex-husband played Metal Gear with you or anything like that, but since Kojima is a film student, he wasn't a programmer. He was a film student when he got hired by Konami and was about to be fired from Konami when they basically said, "Okay, do your thing." And that's where he created his style, which is a much more cinematic experience before games like Last of Us were doing it. Where he was actually like trying to make films in video games. And I like to make this joke, and I will continue to make it. You know, when you play a Hideo Kojima game, you don't play it with a controller, you play it with a bowl of popcorn.
Yeah, I actually don't mind video games like that.
No.
Like I like playing video games like that,
No,
which is
he
why
was the guy that did it first.
I need to like play Metal Gear Solid then. I've actually never played it.
No. It's almost like I could probably fix all this. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there. And frankly, we can't even play every single Kojima game because one of them never made it to the States.
Well, that is a shame.
Which is Police Knots, which was basically his take on which one is it that Danny Glover and Mel Gibson? Lethal Weapon? Is that what it is, Alex?
I'm sorry, it was kind of cutting out. What was the question?
Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, buddy cop movie.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, so Police Knots is his take on Lethal Weapon. So I mean, it literally is an anime Lethal Weapon movie game, but we can't have it because he made it so that his main character was a philanderer, and he actually could, you know, inappropriately touch some of the stewardesses and waitresses that they would come across. So it would never pass any of the censor boards here. So, but yeah, yeah, this is definitely going to happen. The other one I would be interested in is a lot of the actors that they brought in were fairly less known, so they were cheap to be able to get. But Guillermo del Toro was part of the cast as well, because he's also very good friends with Hideo Kojima. Fun fact, Guillermo is actually who connected Kojima and Ritas.
Weren't they going to do the Silent Hills game and then that got canceled?
Actually, you know, you want to know what would be the greatest irony of this whole thing? Is if they teased Death Stranding 2, and then when they unveiled it, it was Silent Hills.
I mean, I don't like scary stuff, and I was willing to play Silent Hill.
But this is like the most anticipated horror game and franchise return that gamers have been wanting for a long time, especially when PT came out, which was a demo for it was the demo / trailer for Silent Hills. So at that point, wouldn't it be funny if Death Stranding 2 was basically him trying to build hype, and then he does the reveal and it's Silent Hills? Because then at that point, everybody goes, holy crap, because you got Konami to approve it, which was probably not going to happen because they still hate Kojima's guts. but that would be one of the biggest reveals that they could ever possibly do. And it's still on the table, I think. But I mean, Del Toro was part of that, and now he's part of Death Stranding, and they've kind of created their own little mythos out of Death Stranding. It kind of makes me wonder if he'll show up again, because he's technically a character that's got intrigue around him, at the very least. I don't know. We'll definitely keep following up on this, but it is definitely something that I'm intrigued about, because, like I said, Death Stranding does, at least the main game, does not lend itself to a sequel. But I have seen interviews from Kojima that I should probably mention, where he has said that if I was going to go back to this, I would, and I quote, take it all back to zero. So we don't know what that means. I mean, I know what he's being cheeky. He's making a Metal Gear reference, but I don't know what that means ultimately. Does that mean a prequel? Like, is he actually going to show the previous Death Stranding event that happened? Is this just going to be a offshoot that becomes part of the Death Stranding universe? I don't know. But the sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned.
I'm curious to see where this could go for sure.
Yeah, let me see if I can actually find the quote. I believe it's that he said he was going to take it back to zero. Let's see, it's somewhere in here. Yeah, it's he would take it back to zero, and he doesn't really elaborate on what that means. So I don't know. But let's go ahead and get into the next story, which originally was going to be the Sony State of Play that I was told by listeners was going to be today. And that was not accurate. So next time we'll worry about that, because it was literally next week, guys. Maybe I'll cover it solo. I don't know. But June is going to be an effed up month, so obviously we'll figure a way to take care of this. Instead, we're going to cover this little gem of a story that happened. Jurassic World Dominion stars say the whole series was feminist and empowering to women from the beginning.
I guess.
Wow, such vastly different responses.
Alex, what did you say?
I guess.
Okay.
Big shrug.
So, in this article, they are talking to the leading ladies of Jurassic World Dominion. So specifically, they're talking to Laura Dern, they're talking to Bryce Dallas Howard, they're talking to DeWanda Wise, who all are basically making the argument that the Jurassic Park movies have always been feminist, and they have always empowered women. And they don't really elaborate on that in the article, aside from Laura Dern making the example of the one scene in the movie where it's very clear that Laura Dern is feminist. And that's where she argues with John Hammond.
Oh, yeah, that. I was thinking of where she's responding to Malcolm's quote, like, where she says, "Dinosaurs eat, man. Women inherit the earth."
I forgot about that part, but that's not what she's referencing. She specifically references the conversation with John Hammond, where she's like, "Look, we can discuss sexism later.
Sexism and survival skills later."
Yeah. And that's the only evidence that is provided for Jurassic World Dominion.
Okay.
And by that, they are basically saying that the Jurassic Park films have been the idealization of female strength and female power.
I mean, that T-Rex, you know.
Maybe the T-Rex was a woman.
It is, because all the dinosaurs are female.
So by that argument, shouldn't Jeff Goldblum be canceled for his statements in the movie where he said, Well, how do you know that? Are you going to peek up all the dinosaur skirts? I mean, that's about as damning as Trump, right?
Well, I don't see why not, considering that it was a pastime of the last decade, or towards the end of the last decade, where people were dragging out those type of comments that celebrities had made at like the end of the 2000s.
I mean, okay, here's my biggest issue with all of this. This is a film series where dinosaurs eat people. How is this about feminism?
That's why I gotta say this is a bit of a side tangent here, but this is kind of why I'm not a big proponent of the whole death of the author theorem when it comes to interpreting popular literature or whatever. Yeah, death of the author prescribes that like your interpretation, regardless of the author's comments, is always valid, and this is kind of why I'm not among them, because if you go back and read the original novel of Jurassic Park, and this is what's really been bugging me about the about the Jurassic World movies.
Okay.
You go back and read the original novel. The original novel is a very hard sci-fi book, right? And hard science
from what I
fiction.
understand, like I haven't read the Crichton books, but I mean it's also horror too, because the dinosaurs ultimately win a little bit more in the books than what I've been told.
Yeah, the book's a little bit, you could say, darker than Spielberg's first film, but the point is like the book is a very hard sci-fi. Yeah, the book is a very hard sci-fi, and it also really explores the ethics of cloning, where, you know, this is what Crichton was really getting at with his book. You know, the movie doesn't really do it as much, though the movie does tap into it a bit, and that's kind of like, and yet Jurassic World comes along, and it's like this really cheesy, pulpy adventure movie, and it's not even very good for that matter.
I hate to say
the first
it,
one's fine,
but Doug Walker has coined it so well. These movies solely exist so that you can put a Cocosaurus in them. It's the only reason that they exist, because you want to have the dinosaurs again, but you want to also have like these ultimate threats, like the what is it? The Indominus Rex, the Indoraptor, and now we have the. I'm sorry, I've been corrected numerous times on this. The Gigantosaurus.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. It's just
I like how Alex just did that. Yeah,
it's just the franchising of the series and the sheer marketing and commercialization. It's just gone.
Correct me if
way
I'm wrong.
beyond
Crichton's not around anymore, right?
He's dead. He's been gone. He's been dead since 2008, I think.
It kind of makes me wonder if he would have approved of Jurassic World being a thing.
Yeah, I almost don't think so. I mean, him as a screenwriter, he's certainly written his share of pulp. You know, he wrote Twister, so there you go. It's not like he was above writing kind of more pulpy fiction, right? It's just, but I think of Jurassic Park, you know, I love the first movie, of course. I mean, who doesn't? But I have also read the book. I had to read it in high school. It was a good book, but it just like, it's kind of a weird contrast here when I see the Jurassic World movies being these really over the top and kind of ridiculous monster movies, when the original novel was such a hard sci-fi to explore cloning ethics.
I like how a friend of mine put it. Jurassic World is basically Universal Studios the movie, where it's just like, okay, we want to make a movie that will literally become a Universal Studios ride, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's why this film exists.
It really does feel like a theme park attraction.
Yeah. And what makes it even worse is like, okay, I hate to be the asshole in the room, but okay, Chris Pratt is good when it comes to interviews and stuff like that. And I would actually, I've seen some of the marketing stuff that Bryce Dallas Howard has done, and she's fine. Shut up everybody else about the cast, or everybody else in the cast, because all of them are going off on the weird political wings that just don't exist with this kind of stuff. Because the other problem that I have with this was also recommended by listeners, but I couldn't track down the article. I can't remember which actress it is, but it's going to be the token black female, because of course it is. She was the one that actually came out and said her character is pansexual, and that it is relevant. the fact that she is pansexual is relevant to the plot.
Even though it never comes up in the plot. So
I actually, I know what article you're talking about. I also have forgotten where I found it initially as well.
Again,
because I thought
that makes me want to ask this question. How is your character being pansexual important in a movie where we watch dinosaurs eat people? Just saying. That's all.
yeah,
That's all people go to see Jurassic Park for. They go to see the dinosaurs mess around with the humans and potentially eat them.
it's like when Donald Glover said the same thing about Lando Calrissian. It's like, who cares?
Yes. Sorry, Brenton, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I myself have also like found it odd, that was even stated. However, I think what you said just was beautifully said. Like, how is your character being pansexual an integral plot to a movie where dinosaurs are eating people?
Yes, exactly. I've actually been getting into fights on Twitter about this, where literally the argument that has been bounced back at me going, well, you're sexist and or racist and you'll just never get it. Yes, please explain it to me! How on earth does this matter? What, are we going to have the first ever transsexual raptor? I doubt it.
Oh my god.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, supposedly we've had the first movie does make indication that maybe some dinosaurs are spontaneously changing their genders because
I'm glad you brought that up, because
DNA.
that's another sign of sexism right there. Because how dare those genetic developers add frog DNA into the dinosaurs, which had the possibility to make them male?
And wait, this is what again?
This is Jurassic Park 1.
Yeah.
No,
So like,
but it's making this
series
sexist, you said?
Well, I'm kind of going down the Jeff Goldblum line, basically, like,
Gotcha.
kind of thing. Where, okay, so these films have always been feminist. So the fact that they had the audacity to put frog DNA in the dinosaurs to occasionally make them male, should that be considered sexism?
Well, it wasn't the intent, though.
I know that's not the intent, but look, the intent was never followed in any of these movies.
But I mean, your exaggerated hyperbole isn't really working here, though, because it's like they didn't intend. Whatever, never mind.
Yeah,
Forget
no, you're absolutely right. I'm just joking about this because that's how outlandish this claim is to me. Is like, okay, if you want to say that this is about dinosaurs and the fact that, you know, we're all gonna die, then I'm willing enough to buy that. But I'm sorry, human characters have never really been the focus of it. I mean, the most iconic scenes in this film franchise have been seeing humans get eaten. So, for example, one of the most beloved ones is the lawyer getting eaten by the T-Rex. All right? I can't remember which one in Lost World it was. I think it was the lead hunter that eventually got eaten by a T-Rex or raptors or something like that. That's why people want to see it.
yeah, it was the engine guy. I think it was Hammond's nephew.
Yeah, it's something to that extent. And then Jurassic World, I mean, everybody just wanted to see the a-holes who created the Indominus Rex get eaten, except for the one girl who decided, oh, this is wrong, kind of thing. So I get all of that, but that's not what this has ever been about, and I'm actually kind of pissed that you're grandstanding over a popcorn film, because at this point, like, you've kind of missed the point, and it already hurts considering the lack of logic that was inserted into the previous film. I'm sorry, that's not a Jurassic Park movie, because that's fucking Dino Crisis.
Yeah, Dino Crisis, the movie.
We need to bring Brenton into this, because we both basically came to the agreement that after like the first 30 minutes of Fallen Kingdom, it becomes a Resident Evil game. And so I'm like,
it does. You're absolutely right.
It does. And so I'm like, well, Resident Evil does actually have a dinosaur ripoff called Dino Crisis. So what you're basically saying is that this is Dino Crisis the movie. And we've just gone with that ever since.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for bringing me into the inside joke. That made me so happy.
At that point,
Like
I'm officially
I know I
saying
sound facetious, but I'm being completely honest.
No,
I feel very grateful.
But now I basically want to call Jurassic World Dominion Dino Crisis 2 the movie. Because there technically was a Dino Crisis 3. I didn't even know that. And now we're getting a successor franchise from Capcom called Exoprimal. So at that point, it's just like, okay, but these people still aren't explaining to me how these films are feminist. Sorry, it's not computing. Maybe it's because I'm not running on a Unix system.
Maybe you did answer your own question. The dinosaurs eat people. All the dinosaurs are female. Ergo,
actually,
female dominance.
Do you want to know the one thing that actually made me think that she might have had a point? Is I actually looked back on this, and you guys are going to have to help me on this, because I don't remember all of them. I don't think a single female character dies in any of them. I don't think any of them get eaten.
One does.
Which one?
Yeah, the first Jurassic World movie.
I was going to say, I can't remember if it was the first Jurassic World or the second, but it's that one woman who's like a nanny, and she's really, really annoying and a little bitchy, and she ends up getting eaten.
Yeah.
Like the pterodactyls come swooping in and grab her, and then she gets thrown into one of the water pits, and the dinosaur in there just full on gobbles her up.
Okay, so we've had a woman die on screen.
Yeah.
Due to dinosaurs.
I
Okay,
feel like,
that
I feel like
work.
somebody did die in the second one. I can't remember though.
If there is, because the only female characters I can think of in Lost World are Gymnastics Girl and I think it's Ashley Judd is the lead female character in that was dating Goldblum. So
Not Ashley Judd.
No, it's not. But she looks like Ashley Judd to me for some reason. But neither of those two died. So at that point, maybe there was a female member of the Hunters that died.
Julianne Moore. No, there weren't any female hunters, but I feel like a woman, like a maid or something, did die in Fallen Kingdom, Dino Crisis the movie. Sorry.
Well, if it's the scene that they're thinking, it would be Jurassic World, because it would be that scene where basically all the pterodactyls drop all of them in the Shamu tank and the Megalosaurus.
That is the one that I literally just described, Adam.
Yeah.
No. I was agreeing with you. That's the one.
Oh, okay.
That happened in World. Because we don't get that scene in Fallen Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense, because they're on the island and they're not on the island in the second one.
No, instead we got the bitchy teenage girl going, but they're just like me. I have to let them out. Logic at its finest. So, I mean...
Hey, we're human. We're conditioned to make stupid choices. Sometimes...
Well, but technically she's half dinosaur.
Well, I mean... She was just freeing her people, Adam. It was a valid decision with some pretty intensely horrible consequences that followed.
All I'm saying is that if
world-altering consequences.
If I find out in Jurassic World Dominion that while dinosaurs are stalking a random neighborhood, that one of them actually says "stars," I'm gonna laugh my ass off. Because then at that point it will actually be intersecting, and Jurassic World and Resident Evil will become one in my mind. So, but yeah, that was the only thing I could think of, because I'm like, okay, well, Laura Dern doesn't die, and if the eunuch fiefdom girl doesn't die, and then I went into Lost World, I couldn't think of anybody there. The only female character in 3 is the mom, and she doesn't die. And then World, I couldn't think of any, but you brought up a good one. And then all of the female characters that I'm thinking of in Fallen Kingdom were all the namby-pamby, shouldn't have ever even gone on this expedition characters that should have just been eaten 5 minutes in. Minus Chris Pratt.
Adam, tell us how you really feel.
I do not like the new characters that they brought in. they were whiny and bratty and had no experience with. I'm like, why the fuck are you even here? Because you will die within 5 minutes of seeing a dinosaur. Just say. But yeah, so final thoughts on this one. Do we condone with Laura Dern's thoughts on this?
I don't care, really. She can think that if she wants.
Laura,
it's not going to ruin my movie going experience for Dominion. However, I feel like I've had a nice laugh. I feel like I can continue. Oh yeah, for sure. I can continue to like sit here and think a lot about how I've brought this up a couple of times, Adam, how you, Adam, have mentioned Adam about woke culture and being able to distinguish where it can be relevant and important to the show and other times where it's not. I think Jurassic World is not a place for that to really take place. It doesn't make sense. It's not integral to the plot, despite what this pansexual character's actress may feel. Whereas there are other programs where it is integral. So at the end of the day, at the end of the evening, as we're recording this conversation, I can file this away
into the giant dinosaur's mouth saying, "I'm still pansexual," schwamp, then I'll give her that credit.
Oh my gosh. At the end of all this, I can file this away. It was a good laugh. It was a good conversation. I don't really see how a high sci-fi, high fantasy action film based on a very dark high sci-fi novel by any means is a foundation of feminism. It's really not the place. It's just not the place. It doesn't make sense. So Laura can have her opinions. I'm happy for her. I hope she's sleeping very well at night. I had my laugh. I'm going to enjoy Jurassic World Dominion how I want to enjoy it, and I'm going to go to bed that night and sleep soundly as well.
So my final thoughts are simply, hey, Laura Dern, you were wrong about The Last Jedi. You're wrong now. So,
oh my gosh, Adam.
That's literally my viewpoint on the matter, because your character in The Last Jedi was not a strong female character, as far as I'm concerned. And I think in a lot of cases you could make the argument that Dr. Sadler is a much more stronger female character than the Last Jedi character, but you were wrong then, you're wrong now. And that's just the end of it. But I actually kind of want to go back to Alex here for a second, because he was bringing up a book he was reading. And this has actually kind of mirrored a lot of thoughts that I've had about Hollywood culture over the last few years, which is ultimately that if you're going to adapt a book, like, we used to consider this concept an adaptation. And now it's not even adapting source material anymore. It's reimagining it for whatever message you want to be able to state, or whatever Elseworld story that you want to do. And at that point, I don't have a problem with you creatively doing it, but I do have a problem with you not being honest about what you're doing. And so I kind of wondered with the book if that's where you were going with it. But if you're going to adapt a book series, if you're going to bring it to the silver screen from the page, then you need to adapt it. You can't just insert whatever you want and expect us all to want that, because at that point then something is lost in that, and it becomes its own thing. And I would actually say that thing in some cases can become a little bit of a perversion of what the original creator wanted. And so and I've already said it numerous times, and I will continue to do so, Hollywood writers are creatively bankrupt as far as I'm concerned. They could not create a story to save their life. That's why they have to constantly rely on comic books, movies, games, or other movies, games, books to be able to do this, because they can't do it themselves. And at that point, if all you are capable of doing is adapt or reimagining through adaptation, I'd rather take you to writing school and teach you how to properly do creative work in this regard. But I did want to confirm that with you, Alex. Is that where you were going?
A
Is
little
that they were
bit
basically
more.
saying that it's not adaptation anymore?
Yeah, but I mean, obviously it's not because we're long past the first book. It's
No,
just
yeah.
more like, more. When I was talking, I was more just getting at like, and the comments too. It's just like this is why I tend to be more towards like author intent versus open interpretation.
Yep.
I'm not like strict. To be fair, I'm not strictly against open interpretation because people have. I've seen lots of different like creative interpretations of various works out there by
Sure.
people just kind of throwing their own head canon in, and that's fine. But then there's times where it's just like now you're really getting way off base with the original intent, and I think that's kind of what you're also saying. Like,
Yep.
and sometimes this is of course by the writers officially, or it's by producers, or just by people in fandom in general, or by people a part of a project, whether they're part of the project or not. I think there does get to be a point where open interpretation, death of the author concept goes a little too far off the rails.
And really, all I would want in that is just call it what it is. This is not and actually maybe even have to put a guideline at the end of the credits or something like that. This is not intended to adapt the original work. This is intended to tell our own story out of it. Because like the bigger argument that I could make here is Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Amazon has openly come out and said they have no source material licensed to be able to do any of this series. They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, to the Forgotten Tales, to anything that has been added into the Tolkien lore by either Tolkien or people that have been approved by Tolkien. So at that point, it's not an adaptation, and they keep calling it that. Whereas I would say no, it's kind of like my argument that I have with Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I don't think it should be called a remake. I think it should be called a remix, because it's not necessarily a point for point retelling of Final Fantasy VII. It is and Katase and Nomura have come out and said this. This is what they would do now 10, 20 years away from that product. And so at that point, again, logically, that's not a remake. That is a remix. So add on whatever Kingdom Hearts subtitle that you want to add in, Final Mix, 2.8, whatever you want to do, that would be more honest out of it. Is that it's not a remake, it's a remix. And that's what I would say with these films too, is like, you could say that this is inspired by it, but I would also put on the caveat that this is not an adaptation. This is us going off in our own direction. And I already know that Hollywood would hate that, because then at that point they can't ride on the coattails, but it's intellectually honest to do. And so but I'm glad that this got brought up ultimately, because this actually got put into a much more serious discussion that could easily be roundtabled on it. So one quick thing that I also want to take care of before we wrap things up, because we are a little over time. First of all, so with June, I know that I've only been able to make like the once a month podcast work, guys. And the ultimate reason, if you don't know why that is because I'm actually in the middle of CDL training, which in a lot of cases that has to kind of be the priority. So I have not been able to do a lot of the solo podcasts. I'm not giving up on them or anything of the sort. I just right now trucking, because it's probably going to be a source of income, I have to prioritize it. So when it comes to June, I'm hoping to be able to have some solo podcasts, but I got to be honest about this month. There has been a lot of proposed press conference events that have been inched out there into the nether that they might be doing instead of E3 this year, because if you don't know, E3's canceled. And so at that point, there's a lot of events to go in there. In fact, a couple of them are going to be multiple events from one company. The one I'm going to give a solid example to is Microsoft, where they have said that they're going to do an Xbox event coupled with whatever Activision Blizzard has to announce, But they are also going to be doing a separate Bethesda conference. So there's a lot of these moments that are happening that could potentially be going on. And there's just too much to actually ask the panelists here to watch every single event, unless they absolutely want to. I mean, for crying out loud, there's going to be 2 separate Sega events. I don't even know why, but Alex might watch those. He might only watch one of them. And I don't want to fault him for doing that. So my plan is for the end of the month podcast where we kind of wrap all this up in June is I'm going to be watching all this stuff because I'm a snarky bastard and I'm going to let you guys know what I think the gaming industry is doing wrong. Why? Because I'm an asshole and that's what I like to do. At least that's what people are going to say about it. I honestly wish that the gaming industry would learn from their mistakes and pull their head out of their own ass, but that's just me. So I will be watching all of these, but I'm going to leave this as kind of an optional thing for Brenton and Alex to watch on their own, and we will bring up everything there that is of relevance, along with some of the other stories that are happening because we have other things that are going on aside from video games. So that's going to be how June goes. We will bring up a lot of those trailers, and maybe at the end, we'll just do a gigantic trailer roundup and go into the big announcements and show those trailers kind of thing and go into our thoughts on them. But that's going to be what that ultimately is. The second thing that I want to bring up is I've actually been getting a question pretty regularly from a longtime viewer and listener of the podcast who actually remembers when Brenton was here before and actually wanted to bring this up. So, a while back, we did a Let's Play of the Onimusha series, or at least the first Onimusha game, because it had been rebooted for PS4. And so he actually wanted to honestly ask if we have actually considered doing the other Onimusha games and providing commentary for it. So I'm going to be 100% honest here. Yes, it has been considered. We were technically considering it back then, too. And now that Brenton is back, that would definitely be something that would be fun to be able to do. We have a little bit of an issue in regards to that, though, because the current economy kind of gets in our way here. Brenton actually lives quite a deal south of us now. And so at that point, being able to get together for a live stream is a touch complicated because he's got gas to afford. And in case you guys haven't noticed, there's been a little bit of a craze on social media to F the current president because of current day gas prices. Because they wreck it for everybody. So we might have a solution for it, though. Because we have also been thinking of the idea of maybe if Brenton cannot be here in person, we would prefer it that way. We would prefer to have him in person because that's fun and we could all just sit back and laugh together. But if we have to do it another way, we have actually considered doing some kind of a live feed where we can bring Brenton in. Like, Alex can make it here. I'm literally like, 20, 25 minutes away from you? So
yeah, like 20 minutes.
You can make it here because I think you actually just kind of come from work to be able to do this. So that's not going to be an issue. But Brenton has to travel a significant distance more. So we've considered maybe like bringing him in via Discord or bringing him in via another way where he can get a live feed of the gameplay that's going on, but he doesn't have to worry about gas prices. And ultimately, if this doesn't work, then, well, my solution to that is just to pay him the gas, because then at that point, he's properly compensated. And we get compensated in entertainment. So that's how that works. So we're going to try this out, and I'm going to experiment with it in another way. Because I think that there's a way to be able to do this, because summer is technically where we adults get a little bit of a break in between work, because things kind of ease up because of vacations. So there's another game series that I have been tempted to go out and do in light of a addition to the franchise being added that I thought was never going to happen. And I'm actually thinking that this might be a really great experiment to be able to make sure that we can do this. So I've actually considered whether or not to play the Monkey Island games in anticipation of Return to Monkey Island by Ron Gilbert. And I have also talked to Brinson about this, and I actually thought it might be a worthwhile thing to experiment with this process and see if it would work for things like Onimusha to do it this way. And because that's PC directly, and we can see if it works there, then it'll work with consoles. So I don't know when this is going to start up. I obviously have to work that out with Brinton, but that's the way that we can actually experiment and make sure that everything works. And then at that point, we can just bring in Brinton that way. Because then at that point, I mean, we'd love to have him here, like in person, but we get it. He's quite a distance away and it's expensive. So, and I don't want to speak for you, Brinton, but you and I have kind of talked about this and we've agreed on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at that point, yes, we have considered it. I just want to make sure that this works before we get into Onimusha, because Onimusha did not have remasters. We would probably have to dig out a PS2 or a PS2 emulator to be able to play them. And that might be a much more daunting task. So I want to make sure it works first before we do it. But that answers your question, hopefully. And obviously, Alex is not in opposition of any of this, right?
Right.
He was very hesitant. I think he's in opposition, Brinton. I think we're screwed.
It's okay, man.
So,
oh my lord!
With
Sometimes
that,
there's just a little lag on my hand, guys.
No,
just
you're good. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. If people want to be able to reach out to the panelists to be able to ask questions about what they thought about various stories, maybe ones brought up in the podcast, ones that weren't, Brinton Volley, how do they reach out to you?
They reach out to me through you.
Yes, I'm apparently your secretary. So,
or you can reach out to me on Twitter at bvolley 030. Wow, almost.
Yeah, it's bvolley 30, isn't it?
Yeah, I realized I might end up changing it again, so just wait and see.
Okay. Well, this is definitely going to get need clarification, but all right. So bvolley 30. And Alex, how do they reach out to you?
You can find me on YouTube. Shadowblazer 3000 is my YouTube channel. And best way to always contact me is to reach out to me on Discord. So find me on Discord, either the GNRO server or the other servers I have posted in any of my videos.
And if you want to be able to get into the GNRO Discord server, I've not been making it a big habit, but we are going to be doing it in future live streams where we're going to put out an invite link for you guys. The only reason that we don't have it anywhere else is because the link that I put up on YouTube eventually just stopped working, and there was nothing I could do about it. So with that, if you want to be able to reach out to me, you can do so on Twitter at GeekyNRO, where you can usually see me fighting with a myriad of people on whether or not the latest Marvel decision is a good idea, or whether or not the latest Star Wars decision is a good idea, or whether or not whatever issues of the day are happening. But you can also reach out to me on geeky stuff, because I like talking about that too. But if you want to be able to support the podcast, the first thing that we ask you guys to do is support us via the RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com. And that's where you can go to get everything, not just this podcast, not just the solo podcast, but also we do things like Geek News Movie Night, and we do things like Geek News Anime Night that you guys can join in on, Geek News Game Night, all that fun stuff that you guys can get into. And actually, as a bonus, after I'm done with this advertisement, we have some business to take care of with that as well. But yeah, that's the best way to be able to support us, and you can support it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm. And now we can actually get to this business. It's been a while. And we need to discuss Geek News Movie Night. So with that, I was the one that won last, because I won in honor of the fans for John Wick. So at that point, I get to pick the topic for the next one. If you guys are brand spanking new to this, we pick a topic, we nominate movies, each of us, and then we put it up in a poll, and we let you guys decide what the next episode is going to be. We watch the movie, and we give you guys our thoughts in a podcast form. And so for that, I have decided that the theme this time around is going to be an inspirational animated film not made by Disney and or Pixar. Because that's too easy. So at that point, Alex, do you have a suggestion for this tonight?
I do. So I gave it thought. I came down to 2 movies, but I think my pick would have to be a bit of a lesser known one. It came out a few years ago. It's actually the first of 2 movies, but I think it'll be fine. But that's actually called Haikara-san, Here Comes Miss Modern. It's an anime film from 2017.
Okay.
So I thought, very sweet romance. I thought it'd be a fine film to talk about in terms of inspiring animation.
Okay, you might have to send that to me just for spelling. So
Yes,
when I put it up
okay.
on the poll. So
Okay.
what is it? Hikara-san.
Let's see. Making sure, because Haikara-san, Here Comes Miss Modern.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to its IMDb
Please
page
do.
or whatever.
Please do. Brenton, what is your pick for Geek News Movie Night?
So I also thought about this one for a bit, and it's actually one the 3 of us reviewed. The Boy and the Beast.
Okay, well, that technically hasn't been done in Geek News Movie Night, so it is technically possible. So The Boy and the Beast can get an official review out of this, because actually the other thing too is I don't know if that review is up anymore, because it was on the old RSS feed, and the old RSS feed is kind of old, so they might have gotten rid of it. So that might be a new way to be able to do that. Myself, I have decided to go to my roots for this, and I've been pushing for a review of this film for a while now, and I'm going to be selfish, and just because I want to watch it again, I am nominating The Transformers the Movie, the 1986 animated film, not the Michael Bay stuff. I'm nominating the original, the Mac Daddy of animated films, Transformers the Movie, which is now celebrating past its 30th anniversary. So that would be an interesting thing to do considering the 30th anniversary. So those are the nominations for Geek News Movie Night. Now, I should also point out, we actually did have Shay Tari on top of this as well, but due to other things that are going on in her life, in case you guys didn't know, she's actually in the process of getting married and watching actually a bunch of friends get married. We love Shay, but it is getting really busy for her. So I think we're just going to have her step out this time around, and then she could join us in on the next one. We got to make things easy for her, because as Brenton and me both know, weddings are no joke. They are stupid levels of busy. And she's not only involved in hers, she's also involved in like 3 others. So
Yeah.
Let's give her a break. Let's give her a break, shall we? So with that, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We will be back next month to give a June roundup of the Geek News reviews and opinions that we have here. I will also try and be back solo if I can be. And until then, for myself, for Brenton, and for Alex, we will see you guys next time.